masters, let's say. And yeah, let's just stick around for a bit. We will get started in a bit. Okay, so a few more participants have joined. What do you think, ladies? Should we start?
Sounds good.
Okay, so thank you again to all the participants for joining. I'm Nella Miller from Neonyt, and today we have an exciting masterclass with Circular Fashion from Berlin. We have Jonna Hagblom and Ina Buddha here, and the masterclass is going to be about 1 hour. Feel free to ask any questions also during the masterclass. They're going to review the questions and try to answer them as fast as possible. And yeah, and then the stage is yours, and everybody enjoy the masterclass.
Great. Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to our masterclass, The 5 Steps to Success on Circularity. Yeah, many thanks to Neonyt and Sustainable Angle for offering this great new format yeah, for knowledge exchange and knowledge sharing. We're very happy to be part of that. And yeah, during this 1 hour masterclass, we will take you through the 5 steps to success for creating really a circular product and also a circular system around it. So we will give you a glimpse of our software also, how we can support these 5 steps, and yeah, take you through that. And yeah, my name is Ina Buddha. I'm one of the founders of Circular.Fashion, and with me I have today Jonna Hagblom, who really works a lot with circular design strategies. And today, yeah, we will share you both how we work with Circular.Fashion and maybe how you can also find your solutions for your own projects and companies. But before we start, we are super curious to hear who is here with us. It's great to see so many participants, and we would love to know, yeah, who's here? What is your profession? What is your curiosity for this topic? So it would be great if you could take a second and post in the chat simply what are you doing? Like, what is your profession? Are you a designer, a buyer, or something with marketing, whatever background you have? And also, what are you curious to learn about today? So yeah, please take some time to post it here. We're very curious to see who's here. Great, the first answers are coming in. Don't hesitate to share. We're very curious to learn who's here. Even more participants coming in, I can see. That's also great. All right, so do we have already some more answers? Jonna, can you see that?
Yes, I see people coming in from everywhere, actually. We have from New York, Sustainability Director, designer, clothing brand designer, advisor on ecological transition. That's great, super. Yeah, I would say then, if you come in later, maybe you see it, just note your profession and your curiosity for the topic, and then we can already start, I would say.
And this, the next hour will be actually a mix of, on the one hand, yes, a presentation, some slides, but also like a demo and some sharing of our software tools. And in the end, we would love to encourage some exchange and Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the whole presentation, please write them in the chat. We will make sure collecting them in the end, and yeah, either answering them on the go or in the end in the Q&A. And yeah, before we start, we would love to shortly introduce ourselves as well, and the organization Circular.Fashion that we work with. So basically, Circular.Fashion has developed a platform for circular design and closed loop recycling. And that means that on the one hand, we support fashion brands in really designing products to meet the criteria of recyclers today. And we do this on the one hand through trainings, but also with the design software. And trainings are always, yeah, very engaging formats. We do it for like, yeah, smaller companies, but also for larger companies with like H&M or Hugo Boss. And also with the platform, it's then the next step to really close the loop. So we have a platform that really supports creating a system around a product with a yeah, smart solution of the circularity ID. And this is really giving all stakeholders the information they need to really circulate a product. But more of that we will share in a bit. And I'm sure the people we are here are really aware of like why we are here and what is challenging about our industry and why circularity is so important. But we would still like to take some time to, yeah, shortly get all on the same page and reflect on why it is so important to make a change now. So we see that there is a desire for rapid fashion change, and yeah, maybe not you and not us, but in average, clothing is worn only 4 to 7 times. And we see, therefore, really an increase in clothing sales of like 50% in the last decades, which really left us with 100 billion garments that are produced yearly. And of this number, it's already a huge number, 87% of all those textiles are incinerated or landfilled after use, so not really recovered and recycled. And of course, there is recycling. We see that kind of 12% of all textiles are recycled, but today this is really more a downcycling usually. So fibers get shredded, they get often processed to filling material of car seats, for example, but not really back into fashion again. Luckily, there is a solution in the past years. Closed loop recycling technologies have been developed from great innovators like Renewcell and others that really allow to regenerate the fibers to the same quality again. And that's awesome, of course, but we also see it's still a very slow, like low number of like 1% of all textiles that are regenerated that way. So on the one hand, we have these great concepts of cradle to cradle and circular economy, which on the one hand is a cradle. Cradle is like a school of thought and a design philosophy that really yeah, has inspired the whole thinking of keeping materials in respective cycles of the biological and the technical cycle. And on the other hand, we have the circular economy also as an economic model and providing solutions for companies to really keep products in circulation and really unlock the growth from material throughput. And this is what we call circularity together. And we were so curious to see, like, how can we actually make these models more implemented? How can we help to really accelerate the transition of the industry towards these models that we call circularity in combination? So, and we are of course not alone here, like many fashion brands are on the way, and at like 12% of the whole global fashion market has already committed to circularity. So 9 leading fashion brands are on the way, and we wanted to make it easy and like a speedboat for them to really succeed also in their transition. So this is why we have put together the framework of the 5 steps to success. And this is what we would define it, what really needs to be involved to have a holistic solution for circularity as well. So first of all, we need circular materials. Yeah, really choose healthy materials that have the ability of endless cycles. We need design for cyclability, as well as design for longevity, engaging the user, and also setting up systems for closed loop recycling. And now we want to take you on this journey and start with the circular materials and talk a little bit about what's actually behind these buzzwords and what is important to consider here. So first of all, choose healthy materials that have the possibility of endless cycles. What does it actually mean? We have taken a look on the two different cycles of the biological cycle and the technical cycle, inspired by Cradle to Cradle. And if we now think of textiles and fashion, we could think of, okay, well, then all natural and bio-based materials are biodegradable and are in the biocycle. And all synthetic or recycled materials are also recyclable in the technical cycle. But there are a lot of myths in the industry, and it's even better. So we would love to clarify and open up these myths a little bit. So on the one hand, bio-based must not necessarily mean biodegradable. Bio-based simply means that something comes from renewable raw material. And this can also be a bio-based polymer, for example. And the important thing is here that bio-based materials must not necessarily be biodegradable, because they can, for example, be treated with harmful finishes or dyestuffs. So it's really important to take a close look here. And also, if a product is biodegradable, this must not necessarily mean it was bio-based before, because there are an amazing new innovations on like biodegradable polymers that are originally derived from oil, but still modified so they can biodegrade. So the aim is really here to not harm the environment and let them degrade safely. And also there is a common misunderstanding on compostability and biodegradability. So on the one hand, naturally compostable really means it can degrade in your home compost, on your strawberry fields. And on the other hand, industrially biodegradable really needs also facilities that can allow and facilitate this biodegradation. We need humidity, we need certain warmth, and that can also take up many days and some time. And then there's a third myth, the last one here, which is recycled must not necessarily mean recyclable. And here's why. So if an input is recycled, this really means it was derived from maybe a waste material and put into something new, was redesigned. But it is really important to also ask, was this ever intended to be worn on skin? Is it really healthy? And it must not necessarily be recyclable again, because we need really the knowledge about the input, the ingredients of this, and really know if there is a facility that can actually take this back and regenerate it. And that's actually how a product can be recyclable. So if we have a clear input and really know all ingredients about it, we can also define a future destiny. So if the input must not necessarily be recycled, but still the product can be safe for future recycling and really exclude harmful chemicals and be safe for the technologies that exist today. So these are important differences that we really wanted to make clear. And to summarize these terms, I think it's also important to consider that biodegradability has really the aim to really exclude microfibers or like have them like degrading safely, so they never become waste. And on the other hand, recyclability, the aim of it, is really that products do not become waste, but also that they replace even virgin materials, so that we really can save the essential resources for the essential needs of everyone. And that's something really important, I think. So to close the session on materials here, we wanted to share that from our perspective, there are like different levels of recycling, because now we could imagine what does it really mean recyclable. So on the one hand, there is the lowest level, like the mechanical downcycling, where fibers are put into filling material, for example. But there is also mechanical recycling, where fibers get shredded, but still made into new fibers or yarns with adding new virgin materials that can become a new textile again and can be used for fashion. And also a third level of recycling, the chemical recycling, where really the molecules of a textile are degraded and like regenerated again, so that we have a quality that equals virgin fibers, and we don't have to mix new virgin material to it. So we see there are these different levels, and if we call something recyclable, we are always addressing the two upper versions of recycling here. And yeah, now you could imagine, like, what does it now mean? Like, how should we know if something is recyclable? So we have taken the past years to actually build up a large partner network of recyclers, the most innovative ones that really can turn fibers for new textiles again, and assessed of, like, what are their criteria, technically, economically, like, what can they take back? And we've put this together in a library. So, and this is something that I will now share with you as well, which is called our material library, the Circular Material Library. So we've built these criteria for recyclability and tested concrete textiles if they are validated for their recyclability, and then put them here in the library. So fashion brands, like the partners that we work with, they can really find all their components here, and not only fabrics, but also leather alternatives, yarns, and trims. And so they can browse through and find the textiles that they need for their products, and filter for material composition, material properties, or the fabric type, and really find what they need. And if they have now found all the components for, let's say, an outdoor jacket that is really complicated with like 20 different pieces, of course, they now need to make sure that the full garment stays recyclable. And this combination of the materials, this is something where we can have great design strategies. And this is something where Jonna will take you now on the next step to success, for designing for cyclability.
There we go. So as Ina said, once we have selected recyclable materials, we need to combine them in a way that the product still stays recyclable. And here we work with strategies for monocycle and strategies for disassembly. So we see here a first example, because some of the components that you need to have in a garment, such as closure mechanisms or buttons or zippers, can be tricky to make in fully monocycle, meaning that everything is made of the same material that suits one specific cycle. But here we have an example of our design strategist, Alberta, who made a coat where even the closure mechanism is made out of the same wool material. Another challenge or opportunity to overcome when you're designing for monocycle is that sometimes to still create an aesthetic or an interesting look on the textile, you can work with textile manipulation. And this is an example from Kate Goldsworthy, where they're using the same material, but through different textile manipulation, the fiber or the fabric still gets an interesting touch. And the second part, if you need components that are made of different cycles for some functional or aesthetic reasons, you can work with detachable parts. So here we see an example of bags that need some metal parts for the functionality, but these metal parts are actually removable. So you can unscrew them before recycling. Here is the same kind of example, but with components instead. So this jacket is actually made for a dual cycle. So it's made both for the biocycle, as Ina explained, and the tech cycle. So all of these components are detachable from one another. So as you see on the left side, the vest, for example, can be removed from the outer layer, and this is fully in recyclable polyester. And as well as the hoodie and the sleeves can be removed. And here the designer is also working with detachable components as screwable buttons. Here we see another example of how also these kind of monocycle strategies can open up for new aesthetic looks. So here, the designer really wanted to use a synthetic closure mechanism, but this is fully detachable, but it also allows for some size adjustability in the actual garment. And the second step, the other strategies we work with, is for longevity. So we see circular design as ensuring that everything that goes into garment can be recyclable again, or can be looped back into the economy. But equally as important is to ensure that this piece is actually made to last and is used for as long as possible. So here we work with strategies for longevity. We work with them through functional durability, so ensuring that the garment is actually made to last in function and can resist kind of wear and tear. We use these kind of stress points and how we can strengthen them. And here we see a designer from our team working with usage patterns. So actually seeing where is this garment more prone to break and how can we reinforce that part. So what kind of seams can we work with that are stronger? Should we double the layer on some of the parts? As well as some elements that are more prone to breaking, such as the collar on a shirt, for example. This can be made as a detachable element, which then opens up for, instead of having to throw away the entire garment, only this piece can be repaired or replaced if needed. So this eases the repairability of the garment, but also, of course, the recyclability in the end. Here we see this jacket, and we see how this kind of strategy of using monocycle or disassembly approaches also gives more use occasions into one garment. So this can be used transseasonally. So there are multiple ways of wearing the same garment. And on the other hand of functional durability is emotional durability. So ensuring that not only a garment is made to last, but that someone actually wants to keep and wear it. And this is, of course, a little bit trickier because it's very inherent to your own specific preferences. But there are some really exciting strategies that can increase the emotional durability. And we see example here on the leather bag. It's a material that ages gracefully. Same here, the designer has played with kind of a surface treatment that reveals a pattern over use. So the more you use your garment, the more of the pattern you see actually. And here there's a weaving technique where you as a user can actually weave in new kind of fabric strips to make your own touch on the garment, but also to update it over time. Another strategy for longevity is participatory design, which is to invite the user to be part of the design process. Here we see a really cool example of a brand in Berlin that makes actually 3D printed garments, and you get them in a way that you can actually assemble them yourself. So it's almost like Lego that you can build and then rebuild and take apart again. Other examples of that is to send like DIY kits to your clients, or send these re-dye package, for example, where they can color their own clothing or update them. Here we see an example that we worked on with the Swedish brand where this taps a little bit more into business models, but we wanted to explore how you can actually get more revenue streams on the same piece of garment. So instead of selling a new blouse the next season, the actual blouse could be re-dyed into a new color. And then for the next season again, maybe the user actually wanted to have it short sleeved. So working with these kind of concept of allowing for re-dyeing and allowing for redesign throughout the life. And I will also share what Ina shared, because we have the circular design software with the material library like Ina shared, but the design guidelines that we have gathered over the years and that we're working with different partner brands and different designers are also saved here. So if you're a brand or designer using the software, you can filter here based on what kind of strategies are you looking for. Would it fit leather recycling or synthetic recycling? What product are you working on? What kind of challenge are you trying to solve? Is it about trends, or is it about print, dye stuff? And here you can simply, see all our different kind of design strategies. And once we have designed a garment for material cyclability and for longevity, a crucial step is also to actually engage the user, so our customer, in how to extend the use phase of the garment, and especially where to return. How do you take care of the garment? Where do you return it for reuse or recycling? And Ina will introduce this further a little bit later. But we have Circular.Fashion. One of the key products is a digital tag that actually opens up a talking point with your customer after point of sale. And we think this has a lot of potential on promoting sustainable behavior. And also as a brand, you can present the full brand story and the story of production. So it also builds a lot on the transparency of the product. And here we see for engaging the user, design strategies for longevity and circular design is very rooted in this kind of systems thinking approach, where it's important to find what's the right kind of strategy for what consumer. So we're working with this concept of designing for optimal use. And I understand this is a little bit tricky to see all these different concepts, but essentially it is that it's not, circular design is not a one size fits all, but there are many different strategies to use. So this is a tool to support fashion brands and designers in finding what kind of strategy would suit my client. Am I designing for one user that I want to keep and wear this piece? Or am I designing for multiple users? Then maybe I should look into business services that facilitates that kind of multiple use. This, of course, taps into different kind of business models that could be interesting to look into to actually ensure that the garment lives as long as possible and has the most kind of optimal use throughout. So there are different concepts like short-term rental, for example, or rental subscription, maybe suited for kids wear or something, or for a customer that is growing throughout, for maternity clothing, for example. And then also strategies that we see more and more in the market, but for repair or refurbish, which also builds on the brand loyalty. Of course, if you buy something you invest in and you know that the brand will actually take this garment back and repair it for you. And then these more innovative strategies, maybe of updating and redesign, which we're actually also seeing on the market. So H&M, for example, in Stockholm launched this section where they actually do this kind of small tweaks to just get a new life to your garment, essentially. And then, of course, ensuring the garment's end of life. So already at the outset, design with end of use in mind. And this is a brand that we worked with, Silfir, in Berlin, who are using our Circularity ID to open up these kind of circular models of reusing and being able to return this garment to them for recycling. And I will show you what it. Yeah, Ina has it there. That's perfect. So what you see there in Ina's screen is the digital product site. And this is what you can open up if you scan simply the QR code, or we also work with other technologies like NFC or RFID. So the customer can actually scan and see the story of the piece, what kind of brand made it, how to take care of it the best, what all the different materials that it includes, down to a component level of like sewing thread and buttons, polyester interfacing, so every single component, and where the production is made, and how to return it. So what should you do with the garment once you actually no longer want it? And then, Nina, you take on with recycling. So what happens when garments are actually returned to the brand?
Exactly. Now we come to the last step of the five steps to success. Yeah, I mean, we've seen now a lot of things that are, can be really done from brand's perspective. And we often get the question, if I now design my product super recyclable, and if I have even communication to my user, take it back for recycling, etc., how does it actually work then to establish a system? And how can we really make sure it really ends up at a recycler? So that actually was quite challenging in the past, because the recycling system, I will introduce you now a little bit what are the different steps here, was not made for a circular economy. But the good news is, in the end of this chapter, you will see that things are developing and there are actually solutions. So now we dive deep into how is basically the old outdated system and how can we actually make it better. So for the recycling system of today, like there is, of course, the use phase. There clothing is collected, is sorted for reuse and recycling. And the current system is very much challenged due to many different reasons. So on the one hand, we see less clothing utilization. Also, due to fast fashion, the clothing has less value and cannot often be resold again. Also, the collection rate worldwide is only 10 to 30%. So a lot of the garments, actually most of the garments, are actually ending up in the waste. And also, if a garment ended up at a sorting place, the sorting happens very manual. So I don't know if you can see, actually here is a person in between all these textiles, and they're trying to feel and to see what is actually the material here. But what is challenging about it is that we need much more information to actually cater to these new innovative fiber-to-fiber recycling technologies. So these are information they cannot find out manually. And then the second-hand markets, a lot of them are saturated, so that's another challenge. And to really, tackle the fiber-to-fiber recycling is not happening at large scale so far, so it's mainly downcycling still. But there are these great opportunities that we've shown you, like the brand-owned second-hand stores or e-commerce, as well as fiber-to-fiber recycling technologies. So the opportunities are there. So how can also sorting companies use this better, this potential? So there are many innovations and market developments that are ready to scale now, and we're happy to share some of them. So the first step, of course, designing products in a circular way can prolong the use phase. But also there are great regulations coming, like the EU package, for example, in 2025, which will have a separate collection of clothing for Europe. So we see that the collection streams will increase, more percent will be collected. And a big new thing is also like technologies for automated sorting. And one of them is actually the Circularity ID system that Jonna introduced you with the interface to users, but we also developed interfaces for sorting companies. So basically the sorting companies can also access all the information of the product side, the different materials that are saved, dye stuffs, very detailed, and get a recommendation on where to guide this product. And they get a recommendation not only for recycling, but also for like brand-owned e-commerce systems. So if you as a fashion brand want to take your products back yourself, these sorters can also filter out your brands and send it to them. As well as to a fiber-to-fiber recycler if the product is not usable anymore. Here we see one again as an example. So now you might think, how can this actually work? And to make such a system work, it is very important that we have a data flow across the whole product lifecycle. And that's why we equip the Circularity ID into the garment and make the information accessible to all the different stakeholders. And to have this successfully, we have basically started in the beginning and really had an exchange with the most innovative partners here, like recyclers, sorters, but also industry initiatives that supported us on the way, as you can see here, to really define what is the right data that we need to save. And so we developed the Circularity ID Open Data Standard that you can also find online on our website. So you see what information is crucial to save about a garment to actually enable circulation and continuous circulation. And to sum this up now, all the different steps, we really think it is important to have a holistic solution to your products, to your brand, and to have a coherent solution. Because if one of those 5 steps fail, the whole mission fails. And therefore, we really tackled it on a platform level. So this is basically showing the different sides of solutions that need to be considered. So on the one hand, the product design, which we support with the design software or design trainings. And then the Circularity ID, which basically saves all the information and makes it available to the users, to the sorting companies and the recycling companies. Here you see it shortly again. So the design software basically tackles the 3 first challenges of materials, design guidelines, and also has a product check to really declare if a garment is recyclable and with which kind of recycler. And then the second step here, the user interface to engage the user to inform where they can return these garments, Very important. And then last but not least, a sorting station, an intelligent sorting station that can access the Circularity ID with the sorting software and calculate the best purpose of this particular product. And yeah, the good news is we have already great partners for this on board. So we've made first pilots, and sorters are ready, interested to use it. And also we offer pilots here. So if you as a brand or also as any other stakeholder would love to pilot this interconnected system, you're more than welcome to approach us, and we would be very happy to make some success here together. So these are the 5 steps together again. I hope you enjoyed the information we shared, and we're very curious now to hear what is your perspective, like maybe to hear where you have made experiences already, where you have big questions, and yeah, let us know what you think about it.
I think we got one first question, Ina, which was interesting. How did you do your trainings during the lockdown? And how was the response from the customer?
That's a very good question. Of course, that was quite challenging in the beginning because our trainings were like offline, on site. Usually we visit the brands and spend actually 2 days there mostly, and have a design thinking driven, very active workshop with, prototyping and a lot of things involved. And now we were facing, of course, the challenge that we couldn't go there personally. So we actually developed an online training that follows the same structure and is really a great help for the designers and also the other people that were usually involved in these interdisciplinary workshops to tackle the same challenges. And so they usually take one product as an example and make the whole training throughout with this one product. And the outcome is that they have a solution for this garment, which they can implement afterwards. And yeah, of course, it was quite challenging to find out how can we make this really engaging, that not everybody is sitting alone on their laptop, but really having also great teams. So we collaborated there also with Sketch for one session, where we really made an online training and a design sprint as well. That was, I think, quite fun. And I don't know, Jonna, would you like to share more about it? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I was also surprised how well it actually worked out, because you would expect the design training with textiles to be a little bit tricky over the computer, but I'm actually very, very positive. And we've also started to do, we do some consulting sessions for smaller brands and designers that want to have support in circular product development. And these sessions we've also started doing over Zoom like this, and we actually do them quite hands-on. We even bring in worksheets and tasks that us and the participants actually work together on. So yeah, surprisingly well.
Our library always at hand, so we can also some samples if that's necessary for some cases.
Yeah. We had questions in the chat that I would just we have a few more in the Q&A, but let's just go back to them because they were posted earlier. From Vivienne, how do you class vegetable tanned leather?
So yeah, for leather, it's super important to consider the tanning process to have it really biodegradable. And I mean, there are great alternatives for it that are even C2C certified. And there are also leather recycling opportunities, but less for finished garments or products, accessories. So it is today more established for pre-consumer waste. So we recommend always to classify leather or to aim for the leather for a biodegradable solution here. But also there is recycled leather, which is basically grinded and made to a new leather-like material, which could also be an alternative for conventional leather.
Then, Ina, this is a question that we often stumble upon, but how it works with circularity and stretch fabrics. Talk about the current options for recycled or biodegradable stretch fabrics. So there are quite some interesting innovations in that area, but maybe you want to share, Ina.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, it's very interesting to know, I think, that stretch is not let's say there are different challenges for different recycling types. So some recyclers can only deal with a very few percent of like 2% stretch. There are also recyclers that can deal with a little bit more of stretch. But in general, it is always a challenge. Also later on in the spinning and so on, like even in the mechanical recycling process, it's quite tricky. So like to limit the stretch to a certain amount is always a great solution, but also thinking about how can we make a construction of the fabric in a stretchy way without even using stretch is one opportunity as well. And if you're looking for biodegradable options for stretch, there are also options here. So there is a like cradle-to-cradle certified biodegradable polymer that can be basically turned into many different variations of like hard parts, like buttons, textile, but also stretch. And I think that could be a very promising alternative if you consider biodegradable stretch.
And then we had a question on if the circularity ID also includes a product's environmental footprint. And what Ina presented with the data standard is that we have, through years of research and testing with all of these different partners across the supply chain, we have defined a set of data points needed to actually recycle a garment. But the product side, as I showed you, this can also be made in a white label solution. So we, of course, encourage the brands to post as much information as they can on that side. So essentially, there are a few required things that you need to have there. But other than that, you can add to it. So it can definitely include also the environmental footprint, but it's on the brand to actually do the kind of LCA and do the research to gather that footprint. Anything to add there, Ina?
No, wonderfully explained. Exactly. And I think what we would also aim in the future is, like, of course, setting up a like a measurement of like how sustainable the recycling system is flowing. I mean, this is now a little bit future speaking, but I think it's really important, and we really want to go this way to also like evaluate the recyclability and consider the sustainability there. Exactly, that would be very exciting.
Mm. Can you talk about circularity with water and energy use?
Yeah, I think what is important to think there is that, of course, every virgin fiber uses a lot of water and energy use. And if we recycle a fiber, of course, we also have some energy use there. But what we see is that the recyclers that we work with are, of course, all set for sustainability. So they use renewable energy, and they also like having closed loop systems for their water. So even if we're talking about, for example, closed loop recycling, chemical recycling, they're having a closed loop system for their chemicals and their water, so that there's no wastewater going outside of the facility. So I think these are very important steps to consider, and also when comparing then virgin fiber with recycled fibers, it's always so important to see that we don't have to make any new raw material, because it's raw material, or like material that is available already, and it's not in areas where the land and the water is very much needed for the essential needs of everyone. So this is how we see it.
And then we have another interesting question from Ulla. When designing circularity, we mostly talk about using monofibers. Is it possible to recycle a mix of cellulosic fibers? For example, if we were to mix organic cotton and tencel?
Very good question. Thank you for that. It's very specific to the recycling technologies that are out there today. So on the one hand, we see there are some that can already handle blends today, which are like mostly the mechanical recycling technologies. But there are also promising chemical recycling technologies that are already like proven, that will also scale. And these can also tackle blends. However, what is important to know is that most of the recyclers are specified for one fiber. So even though they can handle blends, technically, some of them wouldn't prefer it, because it is, of course, more economically viable for them to really handle, mainly the material that they regenerate and can sell again as a fiber in the end. So yes, there are technical solutions for it. On the other hand, it is always great to still consider what blends are really needed, to also make recycled fibers more economically profitable in the end, because if it's better for the recyclers, also people purchasing recycled yarns can have a better price if it's easier for recycling.
And we have another recycling questions. If we have any experience with fiber recycling with bast fibers such as nettle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would call them or like classify them under the cellulosic recycling. And technically, like the recyclers who specified on cellulosic materials, they can handle various different fibers. However, since they're also mostly startups and they have to focus and optimize certain technologies for certain fiber types, they mainly focus on cotton fibers, because the processes like they need different solvents for other kind of fibers. So the most established and widespread solutions are there for cotton, since also cotton is one of the most produced fiber in the world fiber production. So it's just from them a logical perspective to focus on this fiber.
What are your plans of spreading the Circularity ID software outside of Europe, for example, Central Asia, Russia, etc.?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is always interesting to understand that with the ID software itself, this is of course something, and also the open standard that everyone can use and should use would be amazing if everyone uses worldwide. And the second part of it is basically the infrastructure and the partner network that is there to assure like sorters and recyclers to really take the garments back and regenerate them. And for this part, we have mainly started in Europe in the very beginning to build up a partner network there. So from our perspective, like from our network, it is most established here, but we also have partners in the US, in Asia. So like it's also like starting up there. And we would be super happy if also like other initiatives are there to further develop this network and system there. So very happy to join forces to spread it also in other areas.
And then we got from Giovanna, how does this organization fund itself? Is there anything like it anywhere else in the world? Do you offer services elsewhere around the world?
Mm-hmm. Super. So for the first part of the question, how does the organization fund itself? So we are a social business and we are also a self-owned company. So for us, it's really important to stay independent and always be able to take the most sustainable decisions as we define it and as we as a team. So we have never gotten any, let's say, fund from investors against any shares. So we're fully self-owned and also want to stay like this. We're very happy that we got great support from strategic partners, from fashion brands, from foundations, but also from public projects that we run together with other consortia. So that's one part. But of course, the services that we offer, we're offering them for profit. So our idea is that while offering these services and generating income, we can also further develop our services and solve even more the problem and solve the problem on a larger scale as well. So that's our idea behind having a social business. And thanks for the question on that. And the second part, offering services worldwide, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously with our in-person trainings, we're right now mainly focusing on Europe. However, since we anyway developed the online training and also a lot of other our services are digitally, we can offer them worldwide, and we do this also. Like we have clients and partners all over the world, and are super happy to welcome anybody who would like to join the platform.
Sure, absolutely. And I was also, we could also maybe on this organization question also say that we're actually a team of 12 people now in Berlin. So yeah, the company has grown quite a bit in the past years. So we're 12 people now.
Exactly.
On the material library, we have a question from Cornelia, if we're having yarns in our database in the material library.
Yes, we also do have yarns for knitting, also sewing yarns, but I believe maybe you mean like for fabric construction. Yes, this is also included. And something that we are looking into in enlarging soon is to go further towards processes. So we would really like to include also like sustainable printing things, etc. So we do have already a registry of those solutions, but to really implement it also in our digital format. This is something soon to come.
And we have another question from Cornelia on what happens if the circularity ID has been detached of the garment. And we're working here with different technologies. So we started like 6 years ago looking into QR labels as the technology, but now we're more promising is to work with another kind of technology like NFC. Maybe you have it there, Ina. Yeah. Or RFID, which is inserted in another way in the garment. So it's essentially, you can, like the RFID you see there is actually like a thread that could be in the garment, or it can be inserted in a hem. So we're working close with the brands here to see what is the optimal place to put this kind of identifier. To make it last as long as possible. Could we maybe, some of the NFC buttons we work with have pockets, for example, where also something can be embroidered on, scan me, or something to encourage the customer to actually, so that they know that, okay, it's essential to keep this identifier in the garment.
Exactly.
Maybe you have something to add, Ina, on this one.
No, I think that's great, and I think it's a very good question, because basically there's also like a great quote. I don't know if I get it fully right now, but like waste is just products without information, or similar, I think is the quote. And I think as soon as we can assure that a product travels with the information throughout the whole product life cycle, it is not waste anymore, because we can make sense of it, and we can also like calculate the best recycling need or possibilities in real time when the garment comes back. Because something that we offer today is also circular material checks and circular product checks. So really making a check once the garment is produced and allocate a suitable recycler to it is one thing. But of course, there are promising recycling technologies coming in the future. And if the product really travels with their information in, let's say, 5 years time or 10 years time coming back, there might be even a better recycler, more sustainable or closer to the point there, which is the right one. And then there will be a calculation. So yes, very important that it stays on the garment.
And what I could add there is also, maybe that's also why we're working with the product side and having something customer facing, because if it gives a value to the customer other than just knowing that it will be recycled, it also has more potential to stay. With the silver, for example, you can, as a customer, you can scan it and then potentially send it back to the brand to have it repaired or re-dyed. So it also, giving this extra value to the customer also increases the chance of keeping it in there.
Exactly. And also essentially proposing the way how to return it, right? It's like this information there can also change over time. Maybe today you use a service of like postal shipping back the garment, and in the future you as a brand want to change it. So this you can also always update on the circularity ID.
What is the new fabric innovations that you are the most excited about? Anything found at the Fabric Expo?
Great. There are so many, and it's always great to keep updated there. I think something that what is really exciting, of course, is maybe you know already, it was already announced, I think, some seasons ago, but I'm a big fan of like orange fiber, for example, also good friends from us, so always highlighting that. And but also, like, of course, Circulose from Renewcell is a really great new material, made like regenerated from cotton, and in a very sustainable way. So these are great options.
Is it possible to access the material library as a researcher?
Yes, so we plan actually to open up the library also for like different versions, like a free membership. So if you're a researcher and you're mainly interested in seeing what kind of textiles are in there, you could access it soon, like in the next month. We're planning this. And then to really dive deeper into the circularity evaluations, we have our premium membership. But yeah, we can definitely also discuss on different types of memberships if you're a researcher, and welcome to just address us.
Now we got another one on the chat. Do you have any plan to give consumers information on how sustainable product is being made, social and environmental topics that carries the circularity ID?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's very important that we do not forget the sustainable aspect of the circular economy. So we really want to create a sustainable level of it. And so we're also assuring transparency. So we're also saving the different production steps of it, of the fabric, of the product. The sustainable certificates that it holds are also displayed on the Circularity ID, so that the users can really discover the sustainability of this garment as well. And I think something very interesting here is also that, we understand us as a social business, and we also see that collaborative impact with other organizations can reach so much more. So one great partner that we actually have for creating even more transparency is TrustTrace, an organization from Sweden that we partnered with to really make the full supply chain also transparent. Because of course we could also develop this ourselves, but there are great solutions for it already, and TrustTrace is doing such a great job. So we're very happy to partner with them and provide even more transparency throughout the full product life cycle.
And we have one more question on the Q&A now. Do you know a company that collects unsold inventory in the US?
Yes.
Specific question.
Very specific, yes. So in general, like SOEX and ICO is also active in the US. Like I know that TaxAid as a sorting company also has great solutions for inventory. Maybe just questioning like their activity in the different areas would be good, but I think these two are very innovative companies that can be addressed for this question.
That was actually perfect timing. We have 2 minutes to go, and now we got one more. Maybe we take this last one. We still have the 2 minutes. Can we say that the Circularity ID is a blockchain software?
Mm-hmm. A very good question. So for the transparency aspect, together with TrustTrace, yes, we're working on a blockchain solution. But for the other systems, it's basically a different solution technically. And so of course blockchain is a great buzzword, and it's but it's not so necessary for this particular function. And we also think it is much more important to also assure that the data inserted is really right. Of course it can travel on a blockchain and be confirmed there, but it is also very important that we can assure that the information input is correct. So this is something that we're also focusing on a lot. Hello, we got Lila back.
So microphone, hi. So do you still have any open questions?
No, we actually just finished the last one.
Okay, perfect timing.
Yeah.
All right, so then, I hope everybody enjoyed the masterclass. I think, did you already share your contact details so people can reach out to you?
No, I'll share them now in the chat.
Okay, so then we can leave the chat open for a few more minutes so you can all copy the contact information for Circular.Fashion sitting in Berlin. And next up in 30 minutes, also in Zoom, is going to be a panel discussion, again with our very own Max Gilgenmann, and together with 3 participants from ZOEX, from Scoop, and from Redress, and it's going to be about responsible consumption and production. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be also for 1 hour, so in 30 minutes you can zoom in into the next Zoom link. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I think now we're getting, I hope you all copied the contact information, and yeah.
Super. And thank you very much to the Sustainable Angle and Neonyt for hosting us in this new format. It was really exciting, and to all the participants for the great questions. Really, really amazing. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.